meeting
This
for those who
conference
can
will
make it,
now be recorded.
and then we'll be posting it on our website. Again, welcome to the Cloud Communications Alliance. This is our second Microsoft Teams webinar. The first one was really overwhelming as far as number of attendees, lots of different inputs, and there are a lot of different ways to look at Microsoft and Teams, and so we thought it was necessary to have a second webinar. Before we get into the details of today's webinar, we have the buttons, the usual buttons that we're all too used to using already. We have a mute button and a camera on off. You can please make sure to mute yourself if you're not talking. It just helps with the connection. But you can change the view. You can look at everybody. You can look at just the speakers, or you can look at nobody. And you can turn on your camera. This platform allows for 250 people's visual at once. So if you want to leave your camera on, feel free to do so. If you want to turn it off, whatever floats your boat, feel free to do so. Karen, next one, please. We have a great lineup today. First, we have Chris from Metaswitch/Microsoft. I mean, when you talk about Teams, who better than have to have Microsoft on the call? So, Chris, thanks for joining us today. We have Chakra from tekVizion, a CCA member. You'll hear about tekVizion in a few minutes, but tekVizion can help you guys interface, if you will, or integrate with Teams, and you'll hear more about Chakra in a minute. And we have William Rubio from CALLTOWER, another CCA member. Guys, we want to thank you today for kind of working with us and helping us put together this webinar. Karen, next one, please. Okay, I think I'm turning it over to Chris now.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, CCA, for forming this webinar. I myself really look forward to seeing as many of you as possible in Scottsdale in September. I think these events have served us well in the meantime virtually, but certainly look forward to getting to see everyone in a couple months. So I'll throw that plug in, Joe, for the event. Next slide. Yeah, so before talking about Microsoft and Teams, I just wanted to provide a short update on Metaswitch. We were acquired last year, as many of you know, by Microsoft, along with Affirm Networks, and we have long been focused on delivering network functions, SBC application server, IMS cores, VoLTE cores, to operators in our 30-year history. We've been very focused on the cloud-native delivery of those network functions, and that, frankly, what was attractive to Microsoft as it has since formed its Azure for Operators group. The mission of Azure for Operators is to enable service provider operators to leverage hyperscale clouds and deliver these network functions in a more scalable, efficient, cost-effective manner, either in their own private clouds or hybrid, or eventually into public clouds like Azure. We are very focused on a partner model. We don't intend to, buy spectrum or build towers or anything like that. We are a platform play in Azure for Operators. We look forward to maintaining the relationships that we as Metaswitch have built over the 30 plus years of our existence, and then really leveraging the development and other applications that can be delivered as part of Azure. So personally, I'm thrilled going from some 800 employee company to a much larger company to leverage the development resources to evolve our platform, but also leverage Azure to deliver much more. And anyone who's following Microsoft and the developments that we are doing in terms of augmented reality and artificial intelligence and the like, all that will be delivered through our network functions and ultimately to benefit our operator customers. Next slide. Just this last thing I'll say about this, some recent announcements that have been made in this domain. Our private MEC service was announced a few weeks ago to enable more efficient delivery of these applications at the edge. And then notably AT&T, who was really a pioneer in moving their network functions to their own private cloud with their Domain 2.0 initiative over time. And they've essentially said we are fully comfortable in allowing Microsoft to now manage that for us and deliver these network functions from Azure. So pretty big endorsement of Metaswitch, who was a part of AT&T's deployment, and Azure as a means to deliver these high quality hyperscale network functions and actually manage those on behalf of operator customers. So next slide. Moving closer to home and the topic at hand is clearly Microsoft Teams and integration opportunities for service provider operators within that space. I think a lot of this was talked about for those who attended the last webinar, the growth that has taken place. I think since the last webinar, we have announced 145 daily active users on Microsoft Teams. So, clearly over the course of the pandemic, as businesses leverage the full power of their enterprise licenses, of which Teams is obviously included, that was a great enabler to maintain business continuity and productivity and remote work during that period. But this growth has been hard-earned in the massive development we've taken place to up-level the quality of experience, particularly with respect to video collaboration, other productivity enhancing tools to make remote and hybrid working, as good as it can be. So, this growth was well earned, and we expect this to continue. I think, it was almost a year ago that Joe, the CCA survey was put into the market, and I think the results came back in September or so. And I recall the top two initiatives that came about from that survey was integration and direct routing into Microsoft Teams. Recognizing that this was now something that our customers and you all were finding in the market and wanting to find ways to add value to this, massive growth that's taking place. So we'll talk about how to do that, in my session, and I think Call Tower and Bill will give some real life examples of how best to do this. Next slide. Max UC has been and continues to be the brand name of our UC and applications platform. Continues to be supported in and by Microsoft. We now have 330 operator customers. We're very widely deployed to now over 30 million end business subscribers. These include UCaaS, CCaaS, SIP trunks, and still legacy ISDN and Centrex and POTS line services across those operator customers. So broad breadth of solution suite, and even before, but now particularly now that we are with Microsoft, we are very aligned on our roadmap and work to enable operators to deliver more value within Microsoft Teams. So as last May that our Permit SBC became certified for direct routing, Operator Connect as well. And then about 2 weeks ago, we announced support for Azure Communication Services, ACS, as well. And that certification is done in concert with tekVizion, who will talk about their role in this as well. So beyond the Teams, DR, and ACS integration via Permita, we also enable UCaaS integrations from our application server. So, our platform, from our SBCs to our application servers are very closely aligned to maximize our customer value in a Microsoft Teams environment. Next slide. So I think again, Call Tower will share more the real life example of how best to play with direct routing in Microsoft Teams. But I think, given the survey I alluded to before, most of you are engaged in some journey to collaborate with Microsoft and deliver value to the growing Microsoft Teams user base. Certainly, we don't endorse it, but you could, opt to, not play at all and not invest anything to and ignore that market. Beyond that, many operators have now added direct routing capabilities and trunking into Microsoft Teams. We ourselves added just 60 customers, since the May certification. So really strong demand from our customer base and new customers who are adding direct routing capabilities. Some of you may be CSPs or tier 2 resellers and actually sell the Microsoft license capabilities alongside direct routing. Maybe more of you are looking at considering the hybrid environment. And while Teams is growing, I think it's really important for operators and our customers to really understand how their enterprise customers are using Microsoft. Some are using the full suite and the phone system license. In those instances, you need to deliver your direct routing or eventually Operator Connect based services. Some are just using it for internal collaboration and video. In those circumstances, you would want to integrate your UCaaS capabilities into that. Others are at different stages of their journey. So I think, if I dare look past the pandemic, many businesses are looking to right size their enterprise. They may have, gone to Zoom or gone to OTT apps, maybe using WhatsApp, still have maybe a bunch of desk phones connected to a legacy PBXs at their office, and maybe if only 50% of their workers are going back, perhaps they've there's opportunities to consolidate and right size their business for their going forward communications environment. So this really presents, I think, an opportunity over the next year or 18 months to collaborate with your customers to determine how they want to configure and compose their communications estate going forward, considering that some portion of their workers will be fully remote, some will be hybrid, and some will be in the office. So we're starting to see good opportunities for our operators who can provide that level of consultation to those customers in those hybrid environments. And then ultimately, perhaps the biggest opportunity, but obviously largest investment, is really providing this full collaborations estate management and being somewhat of an MSP. So I think just purely being a dumb pipe is not a long-term sustainable business model. I think when talking to the investment guys, and I enjoy the webinars as the CCA has provided in the past on how best to increase your valuation. Certainly, the more value that you can provide, the more services that you can provide, the deeper relationships that you have, a broader share of wallet you have from your businesses will drive the biggest enterprise value. But that takes time and investment. So you have to figure out the best place for you to play to, align with your business model. Next slide. So a lightweight architecture diagram, but this is shown to reflect the different types of users that you will encounter in your customer base, those using Teams, those perhaps using a legacy PBX, and those using your own UCaaS service. That will be perhaps even within the same enterprise, you might have this type of environment, but certainly across your customer base, you'll have these different users. The key thing from a Metaswitch perspective is that we can support all of those. Our perimeter carrier SBC can provide not only the access side services, but also the interconnect services. And being closely aligned with Microsoft on the roadmap, we can ensure that, be it direct routing or operator connect or ACS or any variant thereof, you will be able to support those via our SBC. Our Max application server sits alongside that to provide a variety of overlay services or your core UCaaS capabilities. Bill and Call Tower will go over a little bit of detail about how they add value from their Metaswitch application server to maybe fill in the gaps where the Microsoft phone system maybe doesn't deliver all the functionality that's required for a given enterprise, such as things like call recording and contact center and the like. So we are continuing to deliver these to our operator customers and enabling them to deliver both their own UCaaS that's integrated with Teams alongside the direct routing and eventually Operator Connect. Next slide. Operator Connect was announced as a private preview at Ignite a few months ago. Will be and is currently in public preview. Will be GA in the coming months. And this ultimately just enables a better user experience and onboarding journey for customers. So for those wanting to learn more, I encourage you to visit this link I have in the slide. Includes a bunch of documentation both on direct routing and Operator Connect, and actually also a nomination form if you do wish to eventually become part of the Operator Connect program. It does require certification and some development to provide the private connection into the Microsoft cloud. tekVizion will talk a little bit more about that specifically, but ultimately this is a much more streamlined way for enterprises to connect with PSTN calling through operators. Next slide. I think final slide here. So, Metaswitch has been doing this a long time. We have a broad UCaaS, CCaaS messaging portfolio that we bring to now 330 plus operators. Being part of Microsoft, we add additional value by being very closely aligned with the Teams organization on development, and being part of Azure for Operators really allows our customers who choose to go to a public cloud the best of what we bring there in terms of a management and operational efficiencies perspective, and the other applications that can be brought through from the Azure cloud. So we would be happy to talk to you. There's our website, or contact me directly on how you can maximize your opportunities with Microsoft Teams. I'll stop there, and I think we move on to Chakra.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. And thanks to Joe and the CCA team for hosting this one. Obviously, like Joe was mentioning, there's a lot of interest in knowing more about Microsoft Teams, and we will here I'll share a little bit. So first, quickly, I don't know how many of you know about tekVizion. I hope all of you know about it, but for those, just a quick summary of who we are. Our mission is to help and work with anybody who is offering collaboration solutions. We believe that quality and reliability is where we help and make that as a competitive differentiator when they are taking their offers and solutions to the market. So we work with service providers, platform vendors like Microsoft, as we are talking here, Cisco and Zoom, and we work with all of the major platform vendors. So what we do for them is maintain and build their partner ecosystems, partner programs, which I'll be talking here in a little bit about. And we work with several service providers and enterprises as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So let's talk a little bit about Microsoft Teams and what we're doing and how we can help and where you can focus on. Obviously, this is more of an educational thing. So you can participate for Microsoft Teams at a few levels, right? First, Microsoft has a very rich certification program where whether you're a vendor or a service provider, and you can participate in, as Chris was showing, the number of active users and how Microsoft Teams is growing. And one area is that certification programs. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And of course, there is also the direct routing. If you're operators, you're offering direct routing. But one of the big thing there is integrating the trunk and with the existing phone systems within the enterprise. As we know, these are all very hybrid configurations, as you saw in the previous slide. And those configurations and validating and having all that enterprise equipment and all that stuff is critical. And what are the challenges, pitfalls, and things like that. That's something that's one area that we've been working with several of our customers. And the third thing that you should also look out for is Microsoft Teams is in that CI/CD model, right, where they update their client software on a monthly basis. And we all know that real-time communications, especially UC, is very sensitive to change. Especially we know, if you're running your network, that if things are working, then you try not to touch it. And there's a lot of testing and all the stuff that you do before you roll any updates or and so on. But that paradigm is changing now, right? Because if you're changing the client, so your meetings, calling, all of those will be impacted based on the software changes. So the only way to keep up with that change is you have to validate that on a continuous basis, and that is not possible on a manual level. So one thing, and for those who are looking closely into it, there is no calling APIs, so there's no way that you can automate all of that stuff. So what we have done is we're working with a technology called robotic process automation to automate that client, the Microsoft Teams client, where you can emulate all of the user actions on the client. So that way you can exercise and validate that your Teams integrated, whether it's hybrid or full stack Teams, end-to-end on a continuous basis. That's something that you need to check into, and if you're moving in that direction. And of course, one of the big thing that which is on everybody's mind is what does Operator Connect mean? How do we participate? How do we engage with that? And especially if you're an operator, then that's something that Microsoft, as Chris mentioned, has announced, and it'll be launched soon. And I'll talk a little bit about what are the things that are there that you need to check out. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so quickly, what kind of certification programs are available for Microsoft Teams, and where can you participate? Of course, quite a few of you know direct routing. This is where all the SBC vendors that are certified by Microsoft, by tekVizion, who who you could use. That's one program that you can participate. Recording in compliance is another one. If you're a device vendor, devices and room systems is something that there is a program for that. You can participate in that one as well. And the most important is, if you are picking all of these, Microsoft, it's important to understand that Microsoft will support only the certified solutions. So when you are packaging together in your network or making an offer to your customers, make sure that it's important that you're following that. Otherwise, it's going to be a challenge for you. And of course, Teams contact center programs are also there, and Azure Communication Services. So recently, SBC vendors are starting to get certified for that, and ACS is something that more and more certification programs will start coming. And one of the questions that probably you may be wondering is, how, by certifying, how does it help me, right? One, like I said, that support is important. But the more important thing is, you will become part of that Microsoft ecosystem, and there's a lot of Microsoft programs that we can point you in that direction, that you can benefit from a marketing and sales energy and all of that stuff as well. Can we go to the next slide, please, Karen? Okay, so quickly, I want to talk a little bit about the three options, and for you to know which one should we work with, what are the merits to each of them, and challenges, and so on. Obviously, many of you know the calling plans are very native to Microsoft, and there is in Chris's slide where you saw, it's Microsoft, and you can be a reseller or something like that, but primarily it is owned and managed by Microsoft, and they provide. But the challenge in that, and you have to watch when you're creating your offers, is those calling plans are not offered in all the markets. So you need to know what those are, and those are all very well published in Microsoft websites. Then comes the direct routing and Operator Connect. So the direct routing is something where you can leverage the trunks that you're offering to your customers and integrating into that hybrid model. And it gives a tremendous amount of flexibility, especially it's very suitable when there's complex dial plans, because you want to routing calls between Teams players and some customers who are on your PBXs. All of those can be managed locally within that enterprise. But at the same time, there's a lot of enterprise IT teams will have to manage that. With Operator Connect, all of that responsibility moves into the operator, where you are tightly integrated from an API and the trunk and the AD perspective with Microsoft Teams. So if an enterprise has complex dial plans or branch survivability, it's going to be a little tricky. So Microsoft is planning to, from what we know, they're looking at the branch survivability as there's something that's in the works. But you should look into that. So that's if you have that, then Operator Connect may be a challenge. So especially if you're offering between direct routing and Operator Connect for a customer, that's looking at using you as a PSTN service. Can we go to the next slide, please? So quickly, I want to talk a little bit about the Operator Connect onboarding. Just so that you'll have an idea, there's a lot more detail in this. Of course, you can go to the link that Chris pointed out. And when we are, this program will be launched, as I said earlier in one of the slides. It's not available for public consumption yet, but just wanted to give you an idea. So there is a little bit, so you need to plan, you have to allocate your team, the skill sets that are required are also important. If you're an operator, there is a certain amount of integration that has to happen, right from where you have to do some development, some template development in coordination with Microsoft. There's authentication requirements between both the clouds or both your networks, and then of course Microsoft offers APIs. So there is a couple of ways that you can implement those APIs. So you obviously want to know that. So there's a little bit of a development effort required there. So whether you integrate it into your portal so it becomes a self-service for your customer, or you want to allow your customer to go to Microsoft website and do some things there. So there's a lot of decision making, and you have to plan all of that stuff. Okay, and then of course the actual trunk integration. There's a couple ways you can do it: TLS or OTT, or the maps, which you have seen in one of the slides that Chris was showing. Right, the maps is integration as well. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. Once all of this is done, then the data validation, the CDRs, and call records, quality reconciliation between both the networks. So there's multiple steps that are involved when an operator would like to become Operator Connect certified. So we're coming out with a certification program, and very soon we will announce that. But before we'll start sharing more information around this, I just thought I'll give you a little preview to what's involved, so that way you can start thinking and preparing for all of this. I think that's, let's go to the next slide. I think that's the last slide I have. Yep, that's the last slide. And I'll just hand it off to William from Call Tower.
All right, well, Chakra, thank you very much for that, and Chris, thank you for all the information you provided there at the beginning. I'll definitely put in another plug in here for going out to Scottsdale. I think it's going to be a great event, so hopefully we'll be able to see everybody there. What we're going to talk about here today at Call Tower is really how to kind of tie all these things in together, right? And I think it's really important to understand that from an operator standpoint or a vendor standpoint, how Call Tower could help, and how some of the other folks like Metaswitch, Microsoft, and obviously tekVizion could help as well. So Karen, can we go to the next slide? Just a little bit about us as far as who we are in the background. You could hit on this one, Karen. It should just all pop up. We've been a Microsoft partner since 2008, a gold partner with them. We've also actually been a Cisco partner. That's actually the way that Call Tower was founded back in 2002. And we continue to provide Cisco, not just Cisco HCS, but also Cisco UCM and WebEx as well. And we'll get into that here in a few minutes. And we did an acquisition back in the early part of 2018 from an organization called Appia Communications that brought us Metaswitch, and it just wound up being a perfect marriage, right? What it really did is the Metaswitch for us prior to the acquisition of Microsoft is it really kind of filled in that gap of having two premier UCaaS platforms. At the time, it was Skype. Now it's obviously Microsoft Teams, working with Cisco with their CUCM, and now over HCS, and now WebEx, and also their UCM platform, but really kind of having Metaswitch really fill in those gaps and those different things like paging, faxing, door buzzers, some CRM integrations, all those type of things that in a lot of cases, either of these platforms or both of those platforms just didn't want to offer because it was more complex and just really not part of their main ecosystem, that Meta was able to come in and kind of really fill in those gaps. On the next slide, you can actually see why we're so excited about Microsoft Teams overall. And Chris mentioned this about the 145 million Teams user, but the other part that I want everybody to kind of really focus on, this is on the right-hand side, kind of those last, I guess you want to call them bullets on the right, is in February, there was about 873 apps that were actually added within the Microsoft Teams environment. So it's not just Microsoft that is investing into Teams and into the collaboration space, but it's also all the VARs like Call Tower, like tekVizion, and now obviously Meta being part of Microsoft, that are really just adding value to it because they understand that it is a fast-growing ecosystem, and they just want to make sure to provide the tools based on the customer demands. And the other stat too is that, and this is going back to November, so I think this number has had to increase, that there's over 60 million daily active users on a mobile device. So that mobile device is becoming really that key component of the communication spectrum for organizations. Obviously, laptops and so forth and handsets, I think, are slowly going away. There's been a little bit of a change in that with COVID. Obviously, everybody going to headsets, but now it looks like it's coming back a little bit on handsets. But again, a lot of it there is really going more into the mobile overall. So just some really good stats there as far as what's actually being done. So let's dive into next slide here, Karen, and you can skip over this next one too, because this is just more kind of a turnover slide. On the next one, you can really see how we actually integrate our Microsoft Teams and our Metaswitch. You go one more, Karen, just kind of helps a little more. Thank you. So what we do is we integrate Microsoft Teams and our Metaswitch through our own proprietary platform that is called CallTower Connect. So CallTower Connect is an admin portal. It does more than just the feature side of it. It does also do our quoting. It also provides our catalog, and it does also provides the administrative portal for customers that if they want to work within Microsoft Teams or within Office 365, they have the ability to do that. But when you want to manage the actual DID or you want to manage the permissions and so forth, as far as what some of those calling features are, they can do that within CallTower Connect. So it kind of becomes that single pane of glass for one organization to actually go in there and make those changes while it does sync with your Office 365 portal. So we're not taking away anything from Office 365 because we are native, and we'll go into that here in a few minutes and what that means. But what it does is it just really makes sure to give that easy configuration to customers that they could not just work within the Microsoft ecosystem, but also work with different things like recording, Unite, which is basically to integrate with any type of CRM that's out there. SIP, right? We have a lot of customers that come to us and they say, hey, I'm looking at going into Microsoft Teams. I want to start onboarding and do some voice with Microsoft Teams, but I have a premise-based Mitel or a Cisco, and I still want to be able to go ahead and work on that and slowly but surely migrate over. Well, we could do that by delivering SIP trunks into that customer and then just basically getting cross-platform dialing so that it looks like you're sitting within the same ecosystem, which you would in this case with CallTower, but from an end user standpoint, it's pretty seamless together on how that works. Contact center, I think I did see one of the questions come up on the chat as far as, are we seeing a request for contact center? We've seen our contact center, whether it be our partnership with Five9 that we do put on CallTower paper, or our CT Cloud contact center, which is through Intermedia. They had acquired Telex a few years back, and through our partnership with Metaswitch, it's just been a really great partnership to continue moving forward. So we private brand that, but those two contact centers, we've seen an increase in demand, especially when the pandemic hit. And now it was kind of the mad rush during the first 6 months of the pandemic, and now you're seeing all those organizations really kind of come back and really start to say, well, now I need to look at my long-term strategy. How can you help me? And partnering with the right contact center, the right CCaaS providers really makes a big difference. We're excited about the new announcement that came out Sunday night. For those guys that were up Sunday night late and saw the publicity on it with Five9 and Zoom. So we're working with Five9 on that to see how that partnership's going to continue. But we're excited about it. We think it's going to strengthen all the way around. And even if customers are saying, hey, you know what, I'm interested in Teams or I want to go that, but I still need some type of broadcast meeting, maybe for investor calls and so forth, we have our CT Cloud, which is again brought by Meta through the partnership with Zoom that we still have. So for us, it's really about making sure that we can provide all these different features and products and really drive an end-to-end solution for the customer. And on the next slide, we get this question asked all the time is, why us for Microsoft Teams? Why not go to Microsoft? Why not go to another provider that's doing direct routing? Now soon to be Operator Connect, which we're in the midst of working through that here, and some good announcements are going to be coming out here in the next 30 days on that as well. But for us, again, it's really about providing that full turnkey. And we do this with our vendors as well for anybody that's interested in looking at this at a wholesale level as well. So we'll do the porting pretty much between any PBX over to Teams, right? I mean, that's kind of a necessary evil that's needed out there. We have expanded our distribution of Teams. We can now offer local calling within about 100 different countries. In some countries like China and India that we do need some local gateways in some cases, we're also available to do that. And then some other features like Receptionist Console, emergency notifications, SD-WAN or SD Internet with our partnership that we have over with Big Leaf, the CT Cloud Contact Center and the partnership there with Five9 as well, and then even GCC High. And we'll talk about GCC High, which is more of the government sector, in a few minutes. But those are different things that if you go directly to Microsoft or you try to go directly into a Teams environment, are just things that VARs are really providing. So Microsoft sticks to the core, which is great, and then they let organizations like CALLTOWER come in and really just provide that end-to-end solution. And then different things with experience, right? We've been a CSP going back to its inception at the beginning of 2014. We've had our SPLA agreement for those guys that have been around for a while and know that what that means, that service provider license agreement going back to 2008. We also do that migration, right? So if a customer is looking at going into Microsoft Teams, but they want to do a migration, they want to basically set up a journey to do that, we could help set that up with them in that hybrid environment, understanding that they need live training and that they're going to have multiple locations, not just domestic, but across the globe, that we could provide in about 6,000 cities, and then giving them that 24/7 support. I want to be able to talk to somebody live that understands their solution. That's where we have those certifications with Microsoft. And then as important, making sure that there's no physical device that's needed on site. In some countries, obviously, there's no other choice, but for the most part, most of the countries that we're able to operate in, all of our SPCs are within our data centers in a multi-tenant environment overall. We go to the next slide, Karen. So this just shows a little bit of our roadmap, and we don't even have 2018 on here. 2018 is when we started to actually launch Microsoft Teams or voice direct routing with Microsoft Teams, I should say. But the nice thing is you can see how we've actually progressed or the evolution of the way that Microsoft Teams has come about over the last 2.5, 3 years. The other thing too that we always hear a lot of times is, well, if I go into a native Microsoft Teams solution with CALLTOWER or one of the other native partners out there, if Teams goes down, then what winds up happening in my service? Everything is down, and it's critical for us to continue to have voice. Well, with our partnership that we have with Metaswitch, we're able to go ahead and provide that overall to a customer and give them that alternative option if they need it, as far as doing some type of auto failover to another system that we could do there. And then working with tekVizion, we're able to go ahead and help set all this up, automate it, and make sure that it's easy to distribute to our customers out there, because of the fact that we're able to actually replicate this within a multi-tenant environment. We don't have anything slated right now for Q4 of 2021. I always kind of get asked that question, why is it open? We leave it open because we want to look at what the demands are for the customers, since everything is pretty much changing on a daily basis of what's going on out there. So we always want to leave ourselves a little bit of room, but you can see that we're pretty mature in this marketplace overall compared to other folks that are just either trying to get into it or trying to understand. And that's what we're here to do. If you're kind of that organization that you're kind of waiting to dip your toe into it or your foot into it, and you're not really there yet, we could be your partner here for a year, for 6 months, until you kind of get your feet wet with it and understand exactly what it means to be in Microsoft Teams or get into that space overall, and really get all those certifications and really make sure that it's something that's going to be viable for your organization overall. On the next slide, and I kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, again, 100 countries that we can provide services to in about 6,000 cities. So we work with customers anywhere from as little as about 50 users north to about 20, 30,000 users that we have. We onboard customers all the time in those sides. We're currently onboarding a couple of them that are working in about 20 different countries, but about 15, 20,000 users. Hybrid solutions that some are saying, hey, I'm working with Cisco. I have them on my premise base, but now I'm looking at eventually moving to Teams. We put them on UCM. We give them that cross-dialing platform feature set, which is really important for them because of the fact that we work both with Cisco and with Microsoft. And then again, fill in the gaps and all those things that are needed with Metaswitch obviously out there as well. So some pretty good things there overall. And on the next slide, you can actually see how that design looks. Now, we've had a little bit of a heads up or an advantage in direct routing, just simply because we actually started selling Microsoft Voice back right around the 2011, 2012 timeframe. For all those guys that remember Link, there was a multi-tenant environment back then called LHPV2. Still can't believe I remember that acronym, but or that abbreviation, but it's been there for a while. And we waited. We waited to make sure it understood and understood what the way that Microsoft wanted to deploy their system so that we could leverage the voice side of it. But we have dedicated connections directly from our SPCs and our data centers going into the Office 365 environment. So it's pretty good as far as that connection. That means really that you have a lot less risk and a lot less worrisome from a customer, because you do have those multiple setups. And on the next slide, This is where it kind of gets a little bit confusing for some customers, right? There's a lot of people out there that they say that, well, we work with Microsoft Teams, we could give you voice on Microsoft Teams. You know, what are the differences, right? How do you educate your customers on what are some of the options? Well, we've kind of broken it down to about 4 different designs. Design 1 is pretty self-explanatory. That's when you go to Microsoft directly, you sign up for their calling plans. It's really more of a do-it-yourself, which some customers like. But again, you get very little live support. There's no device support. So if you want handsets or any type of equipment, you're going to go to a website. You have to go out there and manage different providers like a Yealink or a Poly, some of our partners, et cetera, like that we work with. And again, it's do it yourself. Even the porting part of it is. When you work with a native direct routing partner, and I want to stress the word native, that's when you have somebody like CALLTOWER that even vendors and operators that are on the call, we could do this for you in a wholesale level so that we are completely invisible to your end customers. But the porting's done, the implementation, the training, we use that full Microsoft PBX suite. We give you that 24/7 support and then give you those failover options leveraging Meta, which I think is real important for customers to understand that if you have a critical number that's going into an auto attendant or for some key executives that you need, we can help set those up for you either manually or automated to work with. And then when you kind of get into that design 3, this is where you hear some direct routing partners that they're saying, well, we're leveraging Cisco or we're leveraging our third-party telephony, our old class 5 type of 5E switch that's out there. When you get into that, you start to add another layer of risk. It's not a bad solution, but obviously you want to make sure that the customers are educated on that they understand that everything has to be from a compliance standpoint. So when you're looking at some of the compliance requirements out there, you know, PCI and HIPAA and so forth, you got to make sure that that integration piece is also certified in there as well. You got that extra cost in some cases, right? And the question that we get a lot of times from customers and our partners is, well, how do I know the difference between native and somebody else is doing direct routing but is not native? And the simple answer to that is, if you're going into a different portal outside of Office 365 to check your auto attendant, your call queues, or your voicemails, then it's not native. You're leveraging a third party, which again is not a bad solution, but some customers are just looking for a seamless type of integration. And then third-party integrations with some folks like Call to Teams or Call Max that you guys have heard out there. You know, those are some of the ones that are out there that again just plugs into a third-party PBX. But usually these are non-CSP providers or MSPs. A little bit more of a challenge overall to work with, and not fully supported by Microsoft. So if you do have any issues there with Microsoft, it does become sometimes a little bit challenging. And on the next slide, you could actually see the design on that. You could actually see kind of design 1 and design 2. You got those dedicated connections going into Azure directly, and then when you have that integration in between, you kind of have that extra hop, right? Sometimes it's within the same data center, within the same cage, and so forth, but in some cases it's not, and that's what makes it a little bit more of a challenge. Next slide, Karen. So a little bit about GCC HUGEI for the folks that are not familiar with it. GCC HUGEI, you know, there's basically 2 Azure clouds. There's the commercial one, which is what we've been talking about, which also the government commercial cloud, which is more for like state municipalities and so forth that are out there. They kind of stay in one tenant. And then on the other side, you got the Azure government, which is the DoD, the Department of Defense, and then you got GCC HUGEI. And the GCC HUGEI is really third-party contractors that are working with the DoD, and the DoD is kind of forcing them to actually work within that Teams environment because of these different type of compliance requirements, whether it's CMMC, which is now in full effect, or ITAR, or some of the other ones that are out there like NITS and so forth. You have to make sure that if you want to work with the DoD, that you are compliant. And because of CMMC and because of ITAR, you can't have voice and data on the same network. Well, Microsoft came to us at the end of 2019, and they wanted us to be their exclusive voice provider within the cloud to actually provide voice for their customers within the GCC HUGEI environment. So it's something that we've been doing already for about the past 18, 19 months overall. GCC HUGEI was always a little bit behind the commercial Teams environment, but they've done a really good job of really pushing that forward and really kind of getting it up to par with what's out there currently today on the commercial Teams. But again, if you have customers that are in that space in the DoD, and these customers, you know, range anywhere from a small customer that maybe just works in the defense industry and does maybe a microchip to large conglomerates like General Dynamics or Boeing and so forth, which are customers that we work with on a daily basis. We could definitely help you there. And again, we could be completely invisible for you there overall. Next slide, Karen. A little bit about security. You know, this is something that it's just, again, evolving, right? With our customers, we see that customers are asking that, hey, what can you do from a security standpoint? We've all seen the different hacks that are out there, the phishing viruses and so forth that are out there. So we do partner with a couple different organizations that are Microsoft Gold partners to actually bring the security. So this is more kind of a sell with, but if you have customers out there that are looking at getting into GCC or just looking at more compliance and so forth, we could definitely help you out with that. So this is just something that, again, is completely wholesale and white label that we can provide to you as well. Next slide, Karen. And then, you know, to partner with us, just to kind of wrap up, I know we want to leave some time for Q&A. You know, we've been established for a long time, both with our partnership with Metaswitch and Microsoft. If you're looking at something like this, you know, reach out to us. The margins for you here are somewhere north of 50%. So I think it's definitely a good way to kind of dip your toe into the Microsoft ecosystem if you're looking for it. We'll give you that white glove expertise and customization to really help you to make sure that you get educated on that. You are responsible for training and tier 1 support and billing. Those are really kind of the main things. We do have a billing as a service that we could set up and other different type of billing options for you. But again, we're here to help you kind of get into it, whether it's a 6-month partnership or a year or just some education. Let us know in between, you know, ourselves and Chris over at Metaswitch on Microsoft and Chakra. We're here to help you guys. And I think that's it. So I appreciate everybody joining and look forward to Scottsdale, and hopefully we get some good questions.
Okay, I'll start with Chris, because I think this question came in right after Chris finished. Said, should some of your voice services any information on plans for SMMs, MSS, or other OTP channels and how teams might support them? Chris, are you still there?
There we go. Was on mute. Yeah, I'll give a brief answer and maybe ask Bill or Chakra to add. I think Bill had indicated, you know, a broadening ecosystem of partners and applications that are now being developed. So I'm aware that, for example, Bandwidth and other SMS providers have integrations to provide SMS into for Microsoft Teams. I think Bandwidth has a solution called Duet. You know, we bring a solution that potentially could be delivered to make this more of a native thing for Microsoft Teams. So this would be a partner-driven solution. As far as other channels, I'm not real sure. Maybe my colleagues could add to that.
Well, Chris, I'll help you out with the SMS. We released our SMS and MMS product. I think it's about 14 months ago that we did that on Teams. And the nice thing that customers like is that you are using the same DID. There's also a group option as well. So if it does need to go into a group, kind of like a call queue type of environment as well. Again, non-contact center, it can be done in contact center, but non-contact center, we do fully support that as well. So that's something that we do wholesale for our partners as well.
Chakra, would you like to add anything to that?
One second. Okay. The only thing that I wanted to add was, so on the Operator Connect, yes, today voice is the first one, but obviously SMS and other things are also in there that will be, you know, coming through from an integration perspective. That's the only thing that I wanted to add.
Okay, and then on this other question, Bill mentioned something about it in his presentation, but it says, are we seeing customer support centers move to Teams or other virtual meetings as part of the early customer contact and then adding channels for WebEx? Oops, sorry, cut it off. WebEx Spaces perhaps as an environment where a team can resolve the bigger customer issues. Anyone want to comment on that?
I don't know, William, if you're seeing any support centers moving to Teams at this, but you know what we have seen, I can just quickly comment. There definitely some enterprises are looking. The couple that we have talked to, they're looking at it from one specific customer was looking at they're currently on Cisco contact center. They're trying to figure out how to have that, at least from an 800 direct routing. They integrated that, but beyond that, of course, from a contact center, we have third-party applications who are being certified today. So there's definitely some activity going on. But from an enterprises, if there anybody moving to completely to Teams, yeah, I can't comment on that. Maybe.
Yeah, we are starting to see customers, and actually, and there's been a little bit of a shift, I would say, over the last 12 months, probably driven because of the pandemic. But we're starting to see that CCaaS in some cases is actually driving UCaaS. You have a lot more small to medium-sized customers that are now looking at their return on investment that they're able to afford going and spending the amount of cost, the licenses on a monthly basis to actually move into a CCaaS. And you're actually seeing the same thing from the enterprise space, that you're seeing customers move away from a premise-based type of contact center, moving more into a CCaaS because they realize that the feature sets are just there, the backgrounds that they need is just there, and some of the partners that we work with, like a Five9 or our CT Cloud contact center that's provided through Intermedia, they provide that full omni-channel type of solutions that they're looking for. And what we're seeing right now being driven is that customers are looking to work within the Teams environment first. So any type of contact center that actually can provide that experience, that I could be a contact center agent, collaborate within my Teams environment, and still have the presence information, the status information of all my colleagues, whether they are a contact center licensed agent or not. That's going to be key. Some of them are moving to there. There's some announcements that are going to be coming out between now and the end of the year on that. When you look at what are the certified CCaaS providers within Teams environment, which again we work with a couple of them, so we're going to leverage that. But I think you are starting to see more of that collaboration, that people are saying, I want to work everything in one app. I don't want to go ahead and move away to another app anymore, or even go to my email. I want to just stay within the Teams environment. So you're starting to see that demand come more and more.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to mention to everybody that in August, we have a soft phones virtual meeting. And of course, as we've mentioned several times, September 20th to the 22nd, we have the CloudCon Summit in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar, and a copy of this presentation, or these presentations, will be sent to everybody later today. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.